Hi guys, welcome. AMD has just released its latest quarterly reports for Q1 of 2021. Revenue is up 93% year on year, and net income and earnings per share have tripled. In this video on AMD Stock Analysis, I'm going to dive into the financials and the technical charts to see whether is AMD worth investing in, is it a buy or a sell at the current price, and whether AMD is trending up or down from the technical charts. So, let's jump into it. The revenue has been on a solid growth path since 2019 from $1.2 billion to $3.4 billion in the most recent quarter. The year-over-year revenue growth is very high at 93%. It is this high because last year's Q1 revenue was just $1.7 billion compared to the current revenue of $3.4 billion. In comparison, the quarter-over-quarter growth is just 6%. The projected outlook for the next quarter is $3.6 billion. That will result in year-over-year growth of 86% and quarter-over-quarter growth of 4%. The gross profit has been rising in tandem with the revenue growth. The gross margin has been averaging around 45%. It is good to see that the margins have been improving steadily since 2017. The total operating expenses have also grown together with the revenue. The rise is mainly for R&D and marketing and general admin. After taking away the operating expenses, AMD's operating income came at $662 million, which is up by 274% year over year. Again, take into account that the year-over-year growth of 274% was helped by the fact that the previous year's numbers were a low $177 million. The net income is in line with the operating income. Note that there was a tax benefit of $1.3 billion in the previous quarter that bumped up the net income to $1.78 billion. Otherwise, the net income would have come at $480 million. The increase in profitability is evident in the net margin that is seeing steady growth from the low of 1.26 in 2019 to 16% in the most recent quarter. The earnings per share has also grown, and note the big bump in the previous quarter due to the tax benefit. The trailing earnings per share of the last 4 quarters is a solid 237. This is proxy for the yearly earnings per share. The financial report also stated that the average selling price grew in recent quarters. This is a good development that shows demand for AMD processors and AMD's ability to charge a higher premium price for their products. And this is in line with the rising gross and net margins. Let's take a look at the cash flow report, starting with the operating and investing activities. Looking at the trend, it is clear that AMD has moved higher up in its cash flow position and is producing positive cash flow from operations consistently. And with the projected revenue growth, the trend of profitability is likely to continue to increase in the future. There is a constant cash outflow in investing activities. It is primarily due to the investment in short-term investment and property, plant, and equipment. The free cash flow is also increasing, and there is a nice bump in the most recent quarter from $480 million to $832 million. Free cash flow is operating income minus the investment in property, plants, and equipment, or also called capital expenditures. It is an indication of the real earned income after investing in continued operations in the business. The trailing free cash flow has turned positive since Q4 of 2019 and has been growing quarter on quarter. This is the clearest confirmation of AMD's growth and profitability. Overall, AMD's balance sheet is steady, with the total assets having grown to $10 billion and the total liabilities is sitting at $3 billion. AMD's cash position is healthy and is still growing. The quick ratio is at 0.62, and with the growing profitability, this can easily increase to 1, which is the minimum preferred level. AMD has a low asset base in property, plant, and equipment, as their business model is to outsource the manufacturing of their processors. Unlike Intel, that has huge capital investment to run their manufacturing and wafer fabrication plants. The other area that I wanted to highlight is Goodwill. AMD has been investing an average of $500 million per quarter on R&D for the last 10 quarters. This would have resulted in intellectual property and other knowledge assets, and these are not accounted for anywhere in the balance sheet. The goodwill has remained flat since 2015. The IP and knowledge assets have a high value, and if accounted for, would value AMD at a much higher level. Since AMD is a fabless chipset maker, it does not need to invest in high capital for manufacturing plants. This is probably one of the reasons why AMD has very little debt compared to Intel. AMD currently has a debt of around $300 million, which is just 3.1% of total assets. And the debt level has been going down. The interest expenses have been going down with the reducing debt. And with the increase in profitability, the interest expenses are a mere 1.6% of income. The book value per share has been rising rapidly and is at $550. The book value measures the net asset value, which is total assets minus the total liabilities on a per share basis. And if we were to include the IP and knowledge assets, the book value would probably be much higher than this. At the current price of 81.62, AMD is trading at a multiple of 14.7 times price to book. That is a very high valuation, but note that it does not take into account the IP and knowledge assets. Value investors look for a multiple of below 5. Due to the rapid rise in year-over-year revenue, the PE to growth ratio is a mere 0.4, meaning that the share price has not appreciated at the same rate as the revenue growth. The PEG ratio measures the PE in terms of revenue growth in comparison with the same quarter from the previous year. It is used to value the stock price based on revenue growth and was popularized by Peter Lynch. A value below 1 but above 0 is a value buy. Let's take a look at the technical analysis. The longer term trend for AMD is still upwards. Usually, stocks go up in 3 phases. The first phase is the early growth, followed by a phase of acceleration, and finally back to normal growth. This blue channel looks like the early growth phase. Then the price broke above this trend channel and started to accelerate upwards. The orange channel represents the acceleration phase. The acceleration phase is characterized by gaps such as the ones that you see over here, as well as accompanied by high volume, as you can see over here as well. After acceleration comes the correction or consolidation, which seems to be where AMD is right now. This will then be followed by another final wave up as it continues on its trend. This final wave will be at a similar gradient as the blue trend channel. So I'm expecting AMD to continue higher above $100 once this correction is over. There is good support at around $75. This support is likely to hold if the price drops in the coming days or weeks. So is AMD worth investing in? It is a profitable technology stock and is growing rapidly with many years of potential growth to come. Is it worth it at current price? The valuation of 14.7 price to book is way too high, but the PEG ratio is below 1. Also, the PE is around 34, which is decent for a growing tech stock. Technically, while the overall trend is up, the price is consolidating. AMD is a buy for me for the longer term, but currently it is moderately overvalued. In the next video, I will be doing a side-by-side comparison of AMD and Intel similar to the one I did for the 5G stocks to see which is the better stock to buy. Subscribe to my channel if you have found this sharing useful and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And I'll see you soon in the AMD versus Intel video.